A lot of piano learners come to me with the same complaint. Dennis, I keep forgetting pieces I worked so hard to learn. And then the magical question always follows. Is there a secret trick to remember a piece once and for all, like saving it to a hard drive? Oh, wouldn't be that awesome? Some enterprising folks even exploit this desire and sell courses promising you that you will never forget a piece again if you just learn their secret technique. Once a parent of one of my students said to me, "My son spent so much time learning these pieces, and now, after just a few weeks, they're gone. He doesn't remember them at all. What's wrong with him? Did I get a broken model? Is there a warranty service I can call?" So I asked her, "Do you remember what you had for dinner last Wednesday? And how much of your 10th grade math curriculum do you still remember?" The truth is, no brain works as a hard drive. Not yours, not mine, not even Kissin's. However, one manager told me that when he asked Kissin how many hours of music he could play right away in a top-notch shape, Kissin replied something like 20 hours. But essentially, even the best pianists in the world forget their pieces they haven't played in a while. But there's a lot of nuance to this, and in this video I'll share some tips to fight back this nasty force called entropy and dementia and actually improve your musical memory. So let's start with the basics. How concert pianists manage their repertoire. The first tier is performance-ready repertoire, which is usually 1 to 3 hours only, depending on a pianist, of music that's ready to go on stage tonight, if needed. But here's something not many people talk about, is that awkward in-between phase when your old program has already faded a little bit, but your new one is not fully prepared for a performance. It's a nasty and awkward feeling, like standing between the floors in an elevator. You're in limbo, not rusty enough to completely forget your old program, but not polished enough to play a new one. Most concert pianists go through this now and then, and trust me, it doesn't feel very good, but it's normal. It's temporary, part of the process. The next layer is your core repertoire. For most concert pianists, it's about 5 to 30 music of hours that can be revived within 2 to 3 days. These are pieces you've played a lot in the past years, for example, or works you learned deeply when you were younger, especially in your teenage years. And things learned during those teenage years tend to sink into the deepest layers of your memory and are surprisingly easy to bring back, even after many years. For example, a couple of days ago, I decided to revisit a piece which I didn't play for almost 20 years, which I played when I was 16, 17 years old. And I was surprised how quickly it came back to me. I thought it would take ages, but actually, despite that, the piece is very complex. And I'm not going to tell you which piece is this, because there is a huge, hilarious story behind how I learned it, which I hope to share with you in the next videos. But just after practicing for a couple of hours, I could actually play it. So that's how it works. And if I attempt to revisit pieces which I played not 20 years ago, but actually like 7 years ago, it comes kind of harder, which feels unfair. So things I learned 20 years ago are deeper in my memory and are easier to get back than things which I learned 7 or 10 years ago. And the third layer is a passive repertoire, the long forgotten zone. This could be between 20 to 500 hours depending on a pianist. These are pieces especially which you have learned on a short notice, performed just once, or maybe not even performed, and forgot them for years. And such pieces might need 4 to 20 days of serious work to revive properly. So what actually helps to remember music longer? First is consciously activating different memory types: ear memory, motor memory, analytical memory, and visual memory. At least those 4 principal types of memory, you need all of them working together. And I've made some videos already explaining how to employ them. But let me give you a short example how I practice. So for example, recently my student brought to a lesson a piece which I have never played, a prelude by Rachmaninoff in C minor. So I also decided to learn this piece. And it sounds approximately like this. something like that. So what I do first is to challenge my analytical memory and just to understand what we have here, because we have a lot of notes. But basically, we outline just a few chords. All that outlines C minor. Then in the second bar we have an augmented chord, and then E flat major. So I would first play it like this. So I would actually understand the harmony, because understanding the skeleton helps me to remember it quicker. Then, of course, I would challenge my motor memory by practicing, for example, in a moderate tempo and making sure that I can trust each finger. And of course, from the very start, I plan my fingering, which also helps to strengthen your motor memory, to remember music with your fingers faster if you just make a choice of fingering and don't play it with random fingering, which only confuses you. Or, for example, how exactly would you distribute this between hands? Or, for example, dotted rhythms, if applied correctly. It's a great way to boost automaticity and to boost motor memory. But of course, it has to be done properly with a quick relaxation and with a very precise rhythm. So there is a little bit of nuance how to use this strategy, which I explain in my biggest course on piano efficiency, which you can check following the link in the description. Then, of course, visual memory. So, for example, playing attentively a couple of bars. Just 2-3 bars, and then close your eyes and imagine you playing this music, imagining each finger and each key precisely, just training your visual memory. And then, of course, ear memory. And in order to develop your ear, you have to listen carefully through all the distances between the notes, paying especially attention to chromatic elements. F sharp G. Those leading passing notes and raised pitches. A lot of minor seconds. A sixth. So I try to really sing through it, and although I'm a horrible singer, but nevertheless just to feel the distance between the notes. Another fantastic way to improve your ear ability and improve your ear memory is to transpose whatever you're learning and play it in any other key. Something like that. So then what works amazingly well is going through cycles of learning and forgetting a piece. So here's a tip which worked fantastically well for me. If I have to perform something in, let's say, 10 months, I would learn it seriously within 1 to 2 months right now, and then I will give it a break and I will forget this program and return to it in a few months to revisit it after I have already kind of forgotten this piece. The more you repeat that cycle, learning, forgetting, revisiting, forgetting, revisiting again, the deeper the piece goes into your memory. Just recently, for example, a student brought to me a Chopin's First Concerto, something I hadn't played in, I don't know how many years, maybe 12 years. And at first, I couldn't even remember the fingering in certain spots. So when my student would ask me like, oh, Dennis, what fingering is better for this spot? I had to stop and literally practice it for a couple of minutes to just remember what kind of fingering would be good for this passage. But after that lesson, I got curious. So I sat down and I tried revisiting the finale, the last movement of this concerto, and to my surprise, it came back in less than half an hour. So after half an hour, I could already play. I could play it already in tempo and with a pretty good level of precision. So if someone called me and said like, hey Dennis, Zimmerman cancelled, could you jump in and play Chopin's First Concerto in 3 days? I would say yes, I could do this. Well, wishful thinking, of course, not gonna happen. But why it comes to me so easily back? Because I lived with this piece between the ages of 17 and 22, roughly speaking. going through many cycles of learning the piece, performing it with an orchestra, forgetting it completely, revisiting it in 1 or 2 years, performing it again, forgetting it, and then revisiting. So after a few years, I went through 5 or 6 cycles like these. So now it's very easy to get this piece back. Now Chopin's The Second Concerto, that's another story, because I learned it in a rush also about like 13 years ago, but I learned it only once within, let's say, 2 months. I performed it twice with an orchestra and never ever revisited since then. So to bring it back now, I probably would need 8 to probably 12 days of concentrated practicing to really assure that I'm ready for a performance. As a kid, I was fascinated by a story about Rachmaninoff, because once during a family dinner, someone mentioned an old piece, and Rachmaninoff sat to the piano and played almost the entire piece from memory. And his wife said like, "Oh, that's strange. I don't remember you playing this piece for the last 20 years since we're together." And he said, "Yes, I haven't played it during the last 20 years because I used to play this piece before we married." Well, I guess after he married, he didn't have much time to revisit old pieces. And at that time, reading about this as a kid, I was like, wow, that's insane. But now actually I get it, because I also have pieces which I didn't play for many, many years, and I still remember them. So I would rather forget my name than that music. Like, for example, this Nocturne, which I used to play at the Chopin competition in 2010. I don't practice this piece for years, and then I still remember it. And if I need to perform it, I need just half an hour to get it ready. That's the power of passionate, deep learning, especially when you're young. That's why my advice to young pianists would be, don't do too many competitions as they limit your repertoire growth. Instead, find a good, healthy balance to have enough time to learn as many pieces as possible before you're 20. Some pianists dedicate 1 day a week to maintain old repertoire and to revisit pieces, and it's a great strategy if you want to keep a large active repertoire. But personally, I don't do this very often, because sometimes after working on a piece for a long time, for weeks or even months, I get fed up. I need a break from it. So I let myself forget this piece completely and revisit it only if I need to. And I don't aim for perfection. I don't aim for a gigantic repertoire to show off how many pieces I can play. I embrace my limitations and I'm fine with them. If I forget something, I don't freak out or I don't feel ashamed, because I know that I'm just a man. But you know what helps actually is teaching, because I have many students and they often bring me pieces which I haven't touched in years. And when I go through those forgotten pieces with my students, I naturally revisit them even without seriously practicing them. But the most important thing, in my opinion, is to accept your limitations. Embrace the fact that music is not permanent. Memory fades, entropy happens. And that's okay. You don't need to have the best technique or a perfect photographic memory to be a great musician and to share something valuable with the world. Just keep showing up, keep learning, going on, and let the process work its magic. Thank you for watching this, and see you next time.